Media Freedom Dialogue on defending media freedom ahead of the December general election. Good afternoon. Welcome to Election Brief. We're live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125, on all our social media platforms and around the world at myjournline.com. Election headquarters is brought to you by Petrosol Platinum Energy, Energizing Dreams, the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, and the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, together as the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. It's also brought to you by German Ozone Media and Chopbox Technologies, a convenience service, as well as Youth Bridge Foundation, bridging the gap for positive youth development. My name is Faustina Safo. Please stay for details. We're a home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Now, onion sellers relocated from Agbogbloshie to Ajin Kotoku are raising alarm over the impact of the current exchange rate on their business. They accuse the government of neglect, highlighting issues such as poor road conditions and inadequate infrastructure at their new location. Speaking during the NDC flag bearer John Dramani Mahama's Greater Accra regional tour at the Amasaman constituency, a representative of the Ajin Kotoku Onion Sellers Association highlighted their struggles since the 2021 relocation. Maxwell Agbawa has more in this report.
NDC flag bearer John Mahama singing one of the old campaign songs of the NPP. The lyrics urged voters to consider their circumstances and cast a wise ballot. John Mahama is similarly urging voters to vote based on their current circumstances. During his tour of the Amasaman constituency, some onion sellers who were relocated to Ajin Kotoku from the Agbogbloshie market in 2021 raised concerns about the exchange rate and how it is affecting their business.
All this due to negligence, everything is spoiled. We have neglected. We are giving direct and indirect jobs in Ghana here, but it seems they don't recognize us as onion people.
You heard NDC flag bearer John Dramani Mahama's concern in that report. Well, the Electoral Commission has responded saying the 2024 voters register is robust and credible. The EC says the rationale for exhibiting the provisional voters register is to correct errors and omission and that it is only going to work to ensure that after all identified issues are corrected, then the final register is printed for the election. Well, still on the NDC, the national chairman, Johnson Isidio Nketia, has reiterated that the party will not refrain from its strong stance of committing to any peace pact. Well, he insists that until all the conditions outlined in the party's meeting with the National Peace Council are addressed, signing of the peace pact will pose considerable danger to its members, who he claims were killed by security officers for lawfully protesting some bad decisions of the EC during the 2020 general election. He was speaking at Amasaman in the Ayen Swano constituency as part of the campaign of the Eastern region.
We are soldier new. We approach you. My Baba Mu pay. I am minister pay. After one by opposition. As a Baba Muda. Adia I say. Udia Bayachi. Say Adia Mekoye and your papa. Bama by the Teso. Meya, Didia Z. Okoya. I bet you were dinner hotel. You are no. Now I buy no or buy no. No, now no crosswalk. Let me out. What about you was a one? And don't teach Abraham. I have one more, let's see one more. You better about to police in Panin for me, Bam Coco. instruction. Say aba ya kwa kotu yentutuo enku nipa. Onfa huni. She said, crime has no expiry date. Even watching that who 2020 and the whole time one more man saw this one more to do such the records near now and then there might be no minister or what you might say the couldn't pass the fine word the same minister and I say almost say dressing place like I said about your way or mobile side I am no side that job was a woman dear approach is not a fool.
Well, now to our Breaking the Deal Police series, we put the spotlight on Dr. John Pipi. He is the presidential aspirant of the Progressive Alliance for Ghana. He is an apostle and the director of Rebuilding the Nations Foundation and the New Nations School. He has an ambitious goal of leading the country as president and has picked up nomination forms to contest the December 7 election. He joins us in the studio with more. Doc, thank you so much for your time here on Election Brief. You are... Yes, you are an apostle, so I'm quite concerned. What is following your ambition to move away from leadership in the church to now doing active politics?
I think that leadership has a big part of leadership, really, is caring for people and helping them to have a better life experience than they've had when you met them. And so that's what we've done. My ministry was as an apostle with over 34 churches across 7 West African countries and in Ghana. And so we've done that for close to 3 decades. And then, of course, we had a school, we had many other institutions that we created, all designed to care for people and provide for them. And so we've had quite a good success in all these things. But once we looked outside our circles, we see a lot of suffering and very little care being given to people. I'm talking about nationally. And so that concern gripped me. I wanted to play a role in making sure that the love and care that it should be available for people from every tribe and every language and every strata of society. That's what we want to see. It wasn't happening. So I began to take steps towards offering myself to be able to, again, care for people at the national stage.
Interesting. I'm quite concerned about your policies. We've heard from the NDC and the NPP, their key policy proposals. But then what new policy are you bringing on board that would make the Ghanaian voter choose you instead of the 2 dominant parties?
Well, I want to start by saying that when I hear about the policies that the 2 major parties are providing, it's almost like they are tinkering on the outside or they tinkering on the edges of Ghana's problems. Ghana is like someone with a serious malaria problem. And then policy people are saying it's almost like pouring cold water to cool them down, but then the problem remains inside. So we are coming with 5 key transformations, which we believe will take this nation from its impoverished states and the suffering to a high-income country in this in a matter of 2 decades. But we want to kick it off now. So the 5 interconnected transformations that we have are, first of all, we want to transform agriculture in this country. Second, we want to transform industrialization in this country. Thirdly, we want to transform natural resource ownership in this nation. Fourthly, we want to transform infrastructure in this country. And fifthly, we'd like to transform ethics in this nation. So I can talk to you about them.
I would be glad to hear them. How do you plan to do this?
Well, first of all, agriculture. We want to produce everything that we eat in this country, and in fact, even more than we need, so that we become net exporters of food from this country. At the moment, sadly, we import more than $391 million worth of rice into this country every year. That's sending our work, sending our money, sending our wealth to other nations just for rice. And also with chicken, it's known that we spend $410 million every year to import chicken. Now, I want us to reimagine a country of Ghana where we eliminate imports of chicken and rice, two major products, within 3 years. Now, that immediately releases millions of dollars worth of cedis into this nation. Those who begin to produce this will become millionaires, who have lots of money on their hands. So all this money will now be floating about in Ghana, lifting up the wealth status of Ghanaians, prospering many. That's what we want to see. And of course, many other products as well.
The Agric Ministry
Yes.
came to tell us not so long ago about the conditions we may be facing in the nearest future, September to be precise. A food crisis, they predict, may come as a result of dry spell.
Yeah.
Is there any specific policy direction towards that in your manifesto?
I think that by the time, there has been any plan to produce food internally. So when there is war in Ukraine, we begin to, quarrel over food in this country. Now, we would have such production levels and storage levels that any moment like this, any spell of bad weather will be well taken care of because of huge stores of food we'll have in silos in this country to protect food security in our nation. Now, we would need to move on to industrialization. It may surprise many people, but 2/3 of home appliances in this country were being produced locally in the 60s during Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's regime. We were producing virtually everything. Refrigerators, radios, TV sets, just name them. What about shoes and clothes? We were doing all that stuff in this country. Somehow, it's all been lost. The PAG government that will be representing, we will renew the production spirit in Ghanaians. We will stir many people. Many young people have got bright ideas. We will stir them and encourage them and open doors for them so that we'll begin to produce everything that we use in this country. From the basic goods, we'll move on to producing high-tech stuff, vehicles. We produce our own tractors. We produce our own bulldozers. So these are all things that you can just pull off the internet now and set up something, and you can do it.
But you want to start with food, and I'm quite interested in your stance. Government is placing a ban on the export of rice, soybean, and maize as a result of dry spell that hit the northern part of the country.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about that ban?
They're placing a ban.
Yes. On the export of rice, maize, soybean as a result of the prediction that we might be facing possible food crisis in September. The reason why they're placing this ban is to ensure there's enough food in the system. What's your thoughts about it? Is that the right direction to go?
I suppose they are looking at the data, they know what they have, but I think that every government owes it to its people to protect the food resources. Very, very important. So if they think that is the way forward at this moment, well, I think that could be what they want to do with this nation at the moment. But the key thing is we are importing so much of these food items anyway. So we have to make sure that we produce much more that is necessary in this country.
Now, I'm quite concerned about what specific policies that you would be introducing, should you be elected, that would sway the Ghanaian voters to vote for your party.
We actually have just started mentioning that we've got, if you're going to think about my fingers, we've got a 5-pronged attack to transform this country. I've mentioned agriculture. I've mentioned industrialization. The third is natural resource ownership transformation. Ghana has been blessed with so much wealth under our feet, actually, in the soil. The gold, the diamonds, the oil, the manganese, the bauxite. We are potentially one of the richest countries in the world, but it has not really reflected in the care or in the experience of Ghanaians at all, because unfortunately, the resource agreements that were signed between Ghana, or to put it this, the successive governments and the foreign companies that came to exploit these products, these minerals, extract them from the soil, they've been very, very unfair to Ghana. In fact, I don't know how anybody signs that kind of agreement on our behalf, because in some occasions, like gold, we get only 1.7% of the total 100% shares of the gold industry. And in the oil, we get between 11 and 17% only of the value of this oil that is being taken down up from the ground. So very spurious agreements have been signed, which means that our wealth gets transported almost totally to benefit foreign entities, and probably their accomplices who have worked with them to start those agreements in this country. Now, a PHG government will reverse that and transition the real ownership of these mines and wherever all these natural resources to Ghanaians. The 34 million Ghanaians will become the real owners. What it will mean is that wealth from these places will now be ours. We will still pay those who come to partner with us. We will still give them a just reward. But it should never be the case that they now have ownership of it and then they give us something called royalties. It should never be the case. Never should it happen again. If we transform that with the gold industry alone, Ghana will never need to ever go to the World Bank begging for $3 billion, because last year, 2023, alone, gold sales from this nation amounted to $9.2 billion US.
Do you approve of government's gold for oil deal?
Sorry?
Do you approve of government's gold for oil deal?
No. We are making a mess of things because we have oil. That's another thing. Our resource, this massive oil reserves, we're lifting up oil, but we haven't put our minds to adding value to it. A PHG government will make sure that there is a refinery that refines the oil in order that we will no longer have to import refined oil. Look, what we are doing doesn't make sense. We ship out the crude oil, very, very low cost, and then we import the refined oil at a very, very high cost. Now, who on earth is benefiting from this? We'll change that so that we will refine the oil here. Another thing we'll do that will give us extra opportunities. First of all, when you refine crude oil, you get lots of material that goes into the manufacture of bitumen, which is an essential part for building roads in this country. You also get raw materials for producing plastics across the board. A whole plastics industry will be generated. But even something that thrills me more is that when you do a refinery, the gases that come out, the light hydrocarbons that come out, can be used as the starting point for the production of ammonia, which is used in fertilizer manufacture. So if we do things properly, we will be able to produce all our fertilizer in this country instead of trying to get it from Ukraine. And that will mean that our investments in agriculture will be lower. At the moment, locally produced rice is much more expensive than even imported ones. The reason fertilizers are expensive. And yet we are burning off the oil, burning off the gases that are needed for producing the fertilizer. If we produce them locally, it will bring down the cost of inputs in the rice industry, rice agriculture industry, and then suddenly it will become accessible to us. So we will transform the resource ownership. And to do this properly, I want to just say something here.
Yeah.
To understand this, there's a story, I want to tell a story of
We'll come to the story,
yes.
but I'm quite interested in your policy direction when it comes to unemployment, because that's quite key for young people, and as well as education and healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely. What I've said to you so far with agriculture, it will release millions of jobs, which we shall do in terms of organized, innovative cooperatives. Millions of people will be employed in this because a door is open. We are producing this crop. It's the people who are going to be producing, it's Ghanaians who are going to be producing this now. And suddenly, so many people will be employed. In industry, when we start to produce everything that we make, who is going to be doing it? Ghanaians. That's like, again, millions of people employed. So it's tied in with the system there. But we must go to the root of it. Transforming agriculture will yield millions of jobs, transforming industry, millions of jobs. And so if you ask about jobs, it's tied in with the process. And we'll be looking for developing innovative cooperatives, large cooperatives that will open the door for many people to do it. We will invest a lot in agriculture. For example, I'm determined that we shall make agriculture the most attractive job for young people ever in this country. We will go to the front plains, open the place up, irrigation facilities, houses for people to live in,
You're
training
quite
for them.
interested in agriculture. Let's talk about healthcare and education.
Yes.
What's your policy direction towards that?
I will come to that in a moment because I've mentioned only 3 of our interventions. Because health and others are going to be benefiting from these 3 things I'm mentioning. So I mentioned agriculture, industrialization, and natural resource transformation.
Yeah.
The 4th will be infrastructure revolution or transformation, where roads, railways, aviation industry, and also it includes energy. So we will develop all this, and energy in particular is very dear to my heart because we will kick off a revolution in the solar energy industry. And not only would we have to wait here and try to import, the materials from China again, we shall be producing our own equipment for solar energy.
That's a lot. How do you plan to fund some of this, especially because you're going heavy on agriculture, infrastructure, and you want to build an oil refinery? Yeah.
Well, most things that you do in life is the vision that makes it happen. Got a right vision, got a right attitude towards it, the money will come. But we can even say to you, I've mentioned about natural resource transition, natural resource transformation. Well, that will immediately release pots of money into the hands of the government to be free to use because too much is being stolen from us now. When we save that, there will be so much money. And also, once you kick off once you kick off industry, they become big sources of tax revenue. Because at the moment, the government is trying to squeeze everybody out of taxes, but they have not built or encouraged the establishment of industries which should really be giving tax so easily and in huge amounts to government. So when we have in place, we are going to be made very wealthy in this country. We can do more with that. Now, so the 4th will be infrastructure. I meant about solar panels. Solar panels, 98% of producing solar panels, the raw materials, is beach sand. Now, how much money do we need to collect beach sand and produce our solar panels? It's just here. But we don't either know about this or we're not interested in this. So when we want to revolutionize this whole production process, we can start making our solar panels and we will aim to cover every house will have their own solar panels. And that will change the dynamics of electricity supply and costs in this nation.
Let's wrap up with education, because I'm quite interested with your policy direction on how to transform our educational sector.
Yes, can I just say one more point before I get to that?
Beautiful.
The 5th transformation will be ethical transformation. And I think most people are not aware how serious corruption is in a country. It destroys everything, stops everything from happening. So as a PhD government, it will be our key focus to make sure that integrity is what we live for and breathe and make sure that it becomes the core of the center of our policies. And we want to develop a culture of, a real culture of integrity. We will set up a culture of integrity that will eventually seep through into other parts of the public service and the whole nation as a whole. So we'll set the example. We will make a pledge that while in government, no PhD official or minister will be able to acquire any property at all during their time in office. we will put things in place to protect that. Now I can talk to you about education.
Okay, before we do education,
Yes.
unfortunately, time is not our friends.
Yes.
Here at Joy News, we're pushing an agenda, defend media freedom. I want to know what your policy direction is when it comes to how the media will operate and media freedom.
I think that the media should have all the freedom that they need to serve as the fourth estate in this country. If you shut the media down, you are in trouble, because then it becomes all a dark hole. Nobody can see the government, nobody can hear the government, and then the government gets into all the corruption things. I think there's, at the moment, probably too much intimidation of the media. If not intimidation, most of the media, and I hear that they are being, made to, they are being bought off as well. And I hope things like that are, again, cutting into the freedom of the media, because if the government is sort of buying them off, they can never be free. We will make sure that we uplift the status of the media. They will be able to stand on their own. They will earn their own money. In fact, so that they will be able to speak the truth at all times, which is what the media should be about. It's a very important arm of government.
And your being here is an indication that not all media houses has been bought. Well, thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, we have to move on, but you'll be back in the studio as we explore your educational policies. And the stage is set for the Joy News National Media Freedom Dialogue, which will get underway later today at Nat Hall as stakeholders gather to defend media freedom. Now, just 100 days to go before the December 7th general election, it has become even more critical to safeguard the media as part of the collective effort to ensure transparency and transparent election. Well, Ghana, once a beacon of press freedom in Africa, has experienced a notable decline in media freedom in recent years. This decline is reflected in the World Press Freedom Index, where Ghana has slipped from 30th position in 2021 to 62nd position in 2023. Ahead of that dialogue, here's a report by Richard Kodoyako, which sets the tone for the dialogue.
Journalism in Ghana has a proud history. From the early days of independence to the modern era, journalists have played a crucial role in exposing corruption, championing human rights, and informing the public. But in recent years, this role has become increasingly dangerous. A troubling wave of violence and intimidation has targeted those who dare to hold power to account.
Two journalists and a driver of Lava Firm, a subsidiary of the Multimedia Group Limited, have been attacked by purported watchmen of the Sewa Regional Hospital in the region.
Management of City FM City TV has petitioned the National Media Commission over the alleged brutalization of one of its journalists, Caleb Kuda, in the custody of national security.
A journalist with Sky Media Group at Takrade in the Western region was on Tuesday severely beaten after he sought to find out why a policeman who was sitting on a motorbike had no crash helmet.
Since 2012, the number of journalists who have faced abuse, threats, and even death has risen sharply. In March 2018, Latif Idrisu, a journalist with Joy News, was brutally assaulted by police officers outside the headquarters of the Ghana Police Service in Accra while covering a protest. He sustained severe injuries, including a fractured skull. Until date, the perpetrators have not been found.
They pushed me in there and they joined and beat me up with sticks, with their legs, with the back of the guns hitting my. Yesterday I asked him to take a shot of that. They hit me with the back of the gun about 3 times at the back of my head here. They hit me with sticks in my rib.
On January 16, 2019, investigative journalist Ahmed Hussein Swali was shot and killed by unidentified assailants in Accra. He was part of the Tiger IPI team led by Anas Arimiyao Anas, which had exposed corruption in Ghana football. The assassination sent shockwaves through the media community, leading to fears about the safety of investigative journalists in Ghana. In 2019, Edward Adeti, a Star FM journalist, was threatened after exposing a corruption scandal involving a judge. Following the publication of his investigation, he received threats and his safety was compromised. In May 2021, Caleb Kuda, a journalist with City FM and City TV, was arrested and allegedly assaulted by national security operatives for filming abandoned state vehicles. His colleague Zoe Abubedi was also detained for receiving the footage. In April 2021, David Tamakulu, the editor of WhatsApp News, was arrested on charges of publishing false news. This was seen as an intimidation tactic to silence critical journalism. In July 2021, Erastus Asaredonko, a journalist with Love FM, was threatened with harm by a member of parliament after his testimony before the committee investigating the Ejura disturbances, where 2 people were killed during a protest. The threat against Erastus drew attention to the risk journalists face when reporting on politically sensitive issues. During the 2020 general elections, there were multiple reports of journalists being harassed, intimidated, and assaulted while covering the elections. Some were attacked by party supporters, while others were detained by security forces. Apart from these, scores of journalists in Ghana have been attacked and continue to face attacks. Latif Idris, one of the journalists who was attacked in 2018, has not fully recovered from the ordeal. The attacks on journalists are often linked to their coverage of sensitive issues: corruption, illegal mining, political misconduct, among others. The lack of accountability is a major issue. Many of these attacks go unpunished, creating a culture of impunity that emboldens those who wish to silence the press. The future of journalism in Ghana depends on our ability to protect those who seek the truth. As new generations of reporters step onto the field, they must do so with the confidence that their safety will be guarded and their voices will not be silenced. For those who risk their lives in the pursuit of truth, we owe them nothing less than our full support and protection. The fight for press freedom continues today, tomorrow, and always.
Or join the hashtag on all our social media handles. It is hashtag Defend Media Freedom, and that event comes up at 4 p.m. at Nat Hall. You can watch on all our social media handles. We were live here on Joe News and myjoeonline.com as well. My name is Faustina Safa. Have a pleasant day as you enjoy the rest of our programs.